This morning, I'm going to tell you a godly place story, or a version of in a godly place style, and we'll talk more about that here in just a moment. But I'm going to tell you the story about saints. And some of these people are probably folks you have heard of before. And some might be brand new people with new stories for you to learn. I want to remind us that saints are not just people who were in the news or won lots of awards or have edifices carved in stone for them. Saints in a Protestant tradition, or at least our tradition, I would say, are people who lived before us, people you may or may not know, and all of us are saints. Living saints, or just saints. This fall, we've been talking about change-making. And so this morning, I've chosen to tell you about some saints who have made change in our world. Some of the saints I've chosen are Christian, and a few are not. I hope that by calling them a saint, you hear me offering an honor and paying a respect to someone, not because I think they need to be Christian, but because I see God at work in them, and I hold them up as an example for all of us to follow. Now, there's no way to tell you the story of all the saints, right? Even I had a really hard time choosing these, and I wanted just a certain number, and I couldn't quite whittle it down. So we have a few extras. But next year, my thought is we'll choose a new theme, and I would like to invite all of you to offer ideas of who should be represented in our storytelling. Sound good? All right, I think it could be a lot of fun. But before you start, who would you add? Let's just enjoy this moment for our change-making saints. I'm going to push this table forward. It's going to get really messy because I made the pictures really big in the hope that some of you in the back might be able to see them. So just know that in theory, I would put these out in a cute little circle and you would all be like, oh, that's great. It's going to get a little more wild than that. We'll see if we have space at the end. Now, for us to get ready, I'm going to bring our story up, and I want to invite you, if you can't see this table, then you might want to shift in your chair, or the nice thing about these chairs is sometimes you can move them a little bit. Maybe you want to come up for this. Just do whatever you need to do to make sure that you have a good seat. All right, let's get ready. So let us begin our story. When I look around this room, I see a circle of church friends, perhaps a circle of family. And did you know that there are more people in this room than we can just visually see? They come to join us from the whole of our faith tradition, from the whole of God's people. Faithful people have gone before us and are with us still. Many of the people that the church remembers, we hold up and we call saints. They are special friends who loved God and who tried to show others how to love God. And we know by their actions, how they lived, that God was working through them. Today we were going to remember a handful of them. And this is not the British baking show. I wish. It looks like a basket, doesn't it? We have this. Whoop, whoop. Like a picnic basket, perhaps for a feast. And we have these. Let's see what we have in here. We have, here is St. Patrick of Ireland. who traveled for God. And here we have Reverend Antoinette Louise Brown Blackwell, Congregationalist who preached and raised her voice. And here we have Coretta Scott King. And she had a dream for God. And here we have Saint Mr. Fred Rogers, who was a good neighbor for God. And here we have Saint Octavia Butler, who imagined new worlds for God. And here we have Saint Dorothy Day, who worked to end poverty for God. And here is Saint Marcia P. Johnson, who worked for equality for God. And here is Saint Senator John Lewis, who worked to make our country more of a reflection of God. And here is Saint Bell Hooks, who wrote about how everyone is loved by God. And here is Saint Cesar Chavez, who took care of farm workers for God. And here is Saint Archbishop Oscar Romero of El Salvador, who spoke out for people in need for God. And here is Saint Maya Angelou, who wrote poems for the glory of God. And here is Saint Grace Lee Boggs, who built bridges for God. And here is Saint Mother Teresa of Calcutta, who cared for the sick and poor for God. And here is Saint Wilma Mankiller, chief of the Cherokee Nations, who raised her people up for God. And here is Saint Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who was willing to risk it all for God. Oh no, oh no. Safe. And here is Saint Nicholas, who gave gifts for God. Oh, there seems to be one more. Saint, who would you put in this yourself? Now, as we look at all of the saints, as we've heard some of the stories, little snippets being offered, I wonder if you find yourself, where you find yourself in this story. I wonder if there's a part of this story that you think is the best. There are no right or wrong answers. You can actually tell me. Yeah. That God has so many faces. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They all have ideas and stuff, and there were subjects and ways and speaking out and doing work for changing society, world, and people's rights and making a difference in this world.
They've all made a difference in this world in very different ways, haven't they? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I wonder what else. They all faced challenges along the way. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. They all loved God. I'm sorry? They loved their brothers and sisters of God too. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. They were all courageous. I wonder if we could take away some piece of the story and still have all the story that we need. I'm seeing a lot of mm-mm, mm-mm, Diana, mm-mm. Okay. Well, let us continue on with this story, and I'm going to start to put it up, and I will name the names again. Saint Fred Rogers. Saint Octavia Butler. Saint Maya Angelou. Saint Dorothy Day. Saint Grace Lee Boggs. Saint Wilma Mankiller. Who is this again? Who would you put in here? Jimmy Carter. Albert Schweitzer. Patty? Jane Goodall. Martin Luther King Jr. Larry Trent. Who else? St. Francis of Assisi. Mama Cass. I didn't think of that one. Say that name again? Sister Maria Augusta Neal. I need to look that one up. Mm-hmm. Living saints, some living saints among us. Okay, right here? St. Paul Rainier. Holly Near. Pete Seeger. Queen Elizabeth. Princess Diana. In the back? Chef Jose Andreas, yes. Great. So we have some ideas for next year, it sounds like. That's good. keep thinking. St. Nicholas, who might not look like what you were expecting. St. Bell Hooks. St. John Lewis. St. Marcia P. Johnson. St. Cesar Chavez. St. Archbishop Oscar Romero. St. Dietrich Bonhoeffer. St. Mother Teresa of Calcutta. St. Patrick of Ireland. St. Coretta Scott King. And St. Reverend Antoinette Lewis Brown Blackwell. They look like regular people. They kind of are, yeah. All right.